Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience podcast. Today I have with me Bryan Arnold. Bryan is the host of the Authority Project, authority building business coach, product creator, and writer. Thank you for joining me today.
Appreciate it, man. I'm glad to be here.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
See, I'm trying to figure out where to start because if we start from way back, really begins in my childhood this is way back when I was in elementary and I started selling these lemon heads and grape heads. Okay. Now I'm a suburb kid, but they didn't have these things in the suburbs. So I would go into the city, buy them and bring them to the cafeteria. Started selling them, and then it got to a point where I got all this, everybody was just loving these lemon heads that they didn't have access to. So that's a good marketing point there too. They didn't have access to to this great product. It's limited. It was a limited offer too, because I only had so many. So I began to take orders from these kids every day. So I come in, and then next day, there's still being so much demand that people like they want. I couldn't fulfill them all, and then all of a sudden, there was like a huge crowd of people surrounding me to get these lemon heads and grape heads, and so I shut down the cafeteria. And they were like, Bryan, can we speak to you for a second? So we worked it out where I couldn't sell anymore. Couldn't sell those things anymore in the cafeteria. But we went to the local store in the suburb area, Milton Food Mart, by the way, what it was called. Talked to the owner there, and he started selling them from there. So my business was out of whack. But I just like from way back when I had these entrepreneurial, tendencies. My father was an entrepreneur, and just through the years, I've learned marketing and um, been off and on. I've had jobs. I've had many jobs when things didn't work out, but I've always had the side hustle. I always had the entrepreneurial spirit for forever, forever. And it still lands me to what I'm doing today, where I'm coaching and I'm showing people what I've learned from everybody, because there's so many different viewpoints, so many different marketing strategies. And now it's to the point where I'm trying to help people just simplify it all in like 3 different steps. So that's where it's taking me. I'm loving where I'm at right now.
Nice. Yeah, I used to hustle the lemon heads and the red hots too. So
Oh
they
yeah.
had
Okay. Nice.
the red hots were good. And then I really got in trouble because kids used to love those candy cigarettes too. And I
Oh
used
yeah.
to
Yeah.
used to sell, which was, I guess you'd probably get suspended nowadays for something like that. But yeah,
Exactly.
I would
Exactly.
hustle that, baseball cards, like whatever I can flip in school in like elementary school, I would
Nice.
flip like pogs and all the things that were like a fad at that time, I guess. I think
Yeah.
back also, what else did I do? Oh, I think the biggest flip I had in like elementary school was out of those like gumball machines. I spent like 50 cents and got like a necklace, right? And it was Valentine's Day. So I convinced somebody to buy that 50-cent necklace for 20
Nice.
bucks. So they bought it for 20
Wow.
bucks off me and then gave it to some girl in school, but they ended up not really wanting it. So yeah, I think a lot of people are like that. They have that kind of passion and hustle and entrepreneurial spirit young. And like you mentioned, I think coaching people in terms of business and simplifying things, people get very overwhelmed with the systems and what it takes to run a business. I think stepping back and really simplifying it really adds a lot of clarity.
Yeah, because it's just it can be confusing and complex, and outside of us already doing it ourselves. So everybody overthinks things. It's just it's a common mistake, but it happens. And getting clear, I think, a big buzzword, clarity, is a great thing for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. So what motivates you to succeed? Obviously, those motivations may have changed over time, but what currently motivates you to succeed?
Right now, just the time. This is a crazy time we're in right now. And I just like um, I see it from the people I talk to. I see it from I've always seen it from people who, and it's always a struggle from mine. It's like I see people with great gifts, and they give up because either they think they're too old, or think they're past their prime, um, or they just seem like, and for me, being introverted and stuff, I see people who are introverted and like they're scared to or have the fear of really getting out there and doing it. So the people motivate me. The people who I see greatness in, they motivate me to share my message with them, to say, and this is very cliche, but trust me, if I can do it, there's no reason why they can't do it. I'm like the most introverted guy, the most shyest guy you would know, procrastinator, and I developed something. I've customized something for myself that gets me to act, and that's I like to help people who who are in that give up stage and saying, you know what, there's still time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if you were to ask me, I'm an introvert too, but I think the show, or my show, the conversations I have are very clear and fluid, and it's one of those things where it's like you don't have to walk up to somebody at like a networking event.
Right.
Like, you make a connection, you're booked. Like, you have kind of your own, somewhat have similar goals in terms of you having your show and trying to reach an audience and add an
Yeah.
impact. And I think it's a lot easier just to jump on and really have an in-depth conversation, and adds a lot of value to me, and I try to get something out of each guest. So I think that, and like you mentioned, I think a lot of people kind of push back their dreams or some of the things that they're really good at, but they have
Yeah.
one failure and they're not equipped to deal with that and pivot from that and learn from that. I had somebody in the show that basically said everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. So
Mm,
anything negative that happens to you, obviously you're going to have, loss, grief, illness, things of that nature. But taking that, learning something from it, harnessing it, and then utilizing it for something that may come in the future, that's a lot harder. So, like you said, age shouldn't be a factor. A lot of things shouldn't be a factor because you're not going to lose anything if you try it, and it's a learning experience. You take something from it. You are going to regret if you're sitting there 20, 30, 40 years with
oh,
the what
definitely.
ifs. What if
Oh,
I ran with this? What if I started it? And it's not like it doesn't happen overnight, but when you start doing little things, 5, 10 minutes to your goal and dream, or your side hustle or your business, that turns into 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours. And then sometimes, obviously, if you put in the work and have the skill set and everything kind of lines up, you phase it out into what you're doing full time. Not to say
mhm.
that people have a job and have a side hustle, they can keep it their side hustle. I genuinely think it's best in terms of whatever the scenario for the person is. Some
Yeah.
people have the mindset like, let's burn the ships, nothing left, I have to
Right.
succeed, which is fine because you
Yeah.
put that kind of pressure on you, and if you work in that kind of pressure, that's good. But
Yeah.
that doesn't work for everybody. So whatever works for
Mm.
your situation.
I think that, yeah, as long as you're not giving up, I think that's the biggest thing. That's like, I know a lot of people say like long term, but you have to think, you have to build over time. That's my biggest thing right now, building over time. Starting with that shell of what you have in your business. Just using what you have at the time and building over time. If you're not building, if you're not building over time, then you're just in the same rut, the same, and that's when you start to fail in your mindset. And you have to, contrary to popular belief, I know people talk about faith, but you have to keep building so you see something happening eventually. I mean, I remember when you came on my show a few months back, like I had a shell of a podcast. Honestly, I mean, it was we had a great conversation, and trust me, people watching this, please, or listening to this rather, please go check that out, because it was, Roman put some great stuff on that show, and I appreciate that for you. Very grateful to have you on the show. But it was a shell. Now I'm like, it's grown to like I'm getting people wanting to come on the show every single day now, from all directions. I'm booked out to like, you know, close to April at this point, where we at November. So it's just like, you sometimes you sometimes sometimes you have to see it, right, Roman? Sometimes you have to see it, but you're not going to see that if you're not building, constantly building, growing, and developing. My set looks different. You were an inspiration to me. Trust me. When you were on my show, I was like, this guy sounds better than me. Wait a minute, I got to get me a new microphone and headphones. So even it helps to build around people that inspire you, people that can help you along the way. That's why I tell people also, don't do this by yourself. That's a big way of getting you, to give up a lot because you feel like you're alone. So don't worry. I mean, don't do this whole thing by yourself. That's what I would say. Also, it's a lesson learned for me as well. Because I used to do it by myself, and that was awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough in that sense, and then it's tough without a support system. And it's one of those things like you start out. I started in terms of my podcast, I was recording the audio and it was just a solo show. And it was just, I was recording on my cell phone, the audio, and then not
Right.
treating it, just throwing it up there. Then
Yeah.
I got a microphone, then I started editing it. Now I use like an AI professional leveling software on top of that to make it
Right.
like crisp
Yeah.
for like cars and smart home players and everything else in terms of a better listening experience. And then I got this stand thing and it was just behind a white wall. And then it's like, okay, I do a lot of interviews on other shows and incorporate video now. I didn't have video, now I have video. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things, you
Yeah.
start somewhere and then you keep learning and kind of growing, because I often say also that complacency is the death of innovation. So if you're not making movement, it's like
Right.
it's kind of like a dead end. And
Right.
not to say it's only career related. I mean, obviously your personal life is tied, but your relationships, the way you deal and talk to people, everything that's connected in your life. So if you're not trying to better yourself or advancing in one way or another, it's kind of like you're staying in your, I guess, safe zone or safe space, whatever you want to call it. And
Right.
a lot of innovation and change and progress doesn't happen in that. Not to say that it never does, but usually when you get thrown kind of in the fire, that's when like the aha moments happen.
Right. So I like the aspect of just building first, build and continue to build, and then sharing what you're doing, because it doesn't matter what you're building if no one can see it. If no one gets access to it, you have to keep on sharing and sharing so people can see it. People that um, can give us, because you need feedback, because you can think you have great content or great great stuff, but you need some feedback to say, well, this let me hear this. Can you give me somebody who can you help me with this, help me with that? So it can't just be in your own mind. And I've learned to, once you start sharing and on your social media, and sharing your results, showing, like, what they call documenting, just sharing what you have, sharing what you're doing, which is basically marketing. Basically promoting what you're doing, promoting what you're trying to do and trying to serve. It's you're not going to get anywhere unless you're doing that and have a plan, forthright for doing it. If you can't do it yourself, get somebody to help you to promote, because that's business. It's just like somebody's creating a software. They have this software is great, but no one you got to get out there and let some people use it, onboard it, or there's no business, right? So that's my second thing. I like to tell people is, like, you have to share. You have to share. You can't be afraid to share what you're doing with the world.
Yeah, I agree. Sharing your story, and in general, like obviously, I'm in the digital marketing space, and a lot of the time, personal brands companies are like, we don't want to be in the public eye. Well, that's why your competitors are beating you. You can have a superior product, but if nobody knows about it, what it does, you have no case studies or kind of real world implementations in terms of success, or don't share it and don't reach the right audience, how do you expect to grow exponentially, especially in kind of the global climate that we're in now? So you harness whatever you have to drive your business. And right now, the internet and digital is one of the
Yeah.
best paths in terms of growing your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some exceptions. I remember talking to somebody about when I was contracted with another company over here in the local area, where I was like gung ho about marketing, doing some Google ads for the company, and if for some reason it just didn't work out, and then he said, "You know what? Let's put a sign on the front of this building. Let's put a flyer on the front of this building." I was like, "That's not gonna work. What are you talking about? Just do online stuff. This is get more people." And I tell you, Roman, let me tell you something. That sign gave us more business than any ad that we could have put out. And it was just like it was a one-time deal. Put a big sign on there. People would drive by and see that sign and like, I saw your sign. I was like, oh, okay. And we got the place was full. It was a co-working space what I was a manager of. Um, and we onboarded everybody, and we were full by the time I left that place, capacity. So, I mean, yes, online is great, but there are all different avenues that if one thing doesn't work, try something else. Try some traditional methods. See what happens, because you just never know. You just never know.
Yeah, you should definitely test. And I mean, in that situation, yeah, I mean, some states and in some countries right now, the traditional aspect's super difficult in terms of like these reoccurring lockdowns and whatever
Right,
mandates. But yeah,
right,
traditional still works. Like in-person conferences in terms of sponsoring and booths still work. So it's really where your target audience is, and if it's driving to a brick and mortar location from that locale, if you're trying to attract people 5, 10, 15 miles in terms of the radius around that location, then that kind of traditional advertising or a billboard or a
right.
sign, like you said, on a building may
Yeah,
actually work better than some of the things you may be trying online.
it's great stuff. And I think like the last thing I tell people, like, this is my motto: build it, share it, and they will come. So when I say they will come, eventually when you start sharing things, you're gonna get certain people that come your way. And then it's just like you said before, just about evaluating who's coming into the door. You want people who are, and I just got off the show this little while ago, people who are like you, but people who are like you. That's what. And if you get the people who are like you, it's so much easier to serve them than anybody who you're trying to force feed something towards them. So I give an analogy like, if someone is coming to your house, and you're not gonna have strangers coming to your house. You're gonna have people that you love to hang out with. Like I mentioned about, you starting with this shell, you're building this little new apartment. There's nothing in there but a bed. You come in there with a bed and maybe like your little small TV. Later on, you keep on building. You're like, now I got a big screen TV. Now the Super Bowl comes around. You're gonna have the Super Bowl party. Now you got a dinner table and everything else. But you're not gonna bring strangers to the house. You're gonna bring people that want to come in and hang out and you want to be with, and then you want to have people who like what you're cooking for dinner, right? So whatever you're cooking, like, you're not going to force somebody who doesn't like macaroni and cheese something else. You're gonna eat this. No, they don't want that. So you want the people who you already know really like macaroni and cheese. So here you go. So that's you're serving the people that want this. So that's the thing about just being like, when I say they will come, make sure you're bringing the people um, that you want to serve. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one thing you may have seen as a weakness in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
That's a great question, because I'm not sure if I turn around completely, but I'm still one of my biggest things that I do for some reason. I just don't. I guess it is procrastination. I wait too much. I wait. So what I've done is I've taken this thing where I set a task every day, a daily task. And I started doing this about 3 years ago, when I was working on this working with an app called freewriter.io. And what I was doing there, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go here and start writing 800 to 100 to 1,000 words a day. nonstop for a year. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And so what 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 I found I was trying to get out of my procrastination and try to get my into my consistency. So what I found in doing that is that I started to have this what I call an obligated mindset, whereas I couldn't stop. I couldn't. It would pain me to try to stop this before a year's time is passed. So I would be out somewhere. It would be like 11 o'clock. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to write. So I would literally leave that place and go start writing to finish up this thing that I want to do every year, consistently daily, every year. And so every year I do the same thing. I take a task, and every day I sit and I do it without fail. Sometimes I start small, and maybe start and make it bigger each day, and maybe every 3 months I make it bigger and that kind of thing. So um, that has helped me with my procrastination, because I'm actually doing something and I'm accomplishing something, and I'm realizing different things while I'm doing the task, and I'm making it better, making a variety of other tasks and that kind of thing. And it has helped me immensely to understand how important your mindset is if you're consistent with it every year. So I do a task every year. Like right now, I'm doing piano every day for for a year. If I miss a day, Roman, if I miss a day, I start over. That's how obligated I am on this thing. So, and I did that this year. So I had to start over. It's crazy, but it keeps me in this mindset of doing this. Next year I'll have something else. So um I that's helped me a lot with that, my weakness of, I guess, procrastination. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of like get in a routine, because then that kind of positive action or whatever you're trying to undertake becomes a habit, obviously a positive habit. And
Right.
obviously that's why it's hard to kick negative habits,
Yeah.
because you need that time and that repetition,
Yeah.
and not like quitting a day and then having to start all over again, ideally. And then I think for lists in general and kind of to-do lists, I think it's important for me because like you, I procrastinate sometimes. I kind of for some reason like being pressured, like something is due, 6 in the morning. I'll start at 1 in the morning where I could have
Right.
started it like 2 months ago. So it's just like,
Right.
it makes no sense. But having a list, figuring out like these are the 10 things I have to get done, maybe personal and professional, or separating it and then prioritizing it in terms of level of importance, I think has helped me a lot as well.
I love that. Yeah. I'm just now getting back into my to-do list now. I'm going using Google Task because it's just in my email now. Just like, okay, this is great. So I love that. So I'm working on that as well.
That's awesome. So what's one piece of advice you have for the audience, personal or professional?
um, Personal is, I just want to I want to hammer down this building thing. Because I see, if I know a lot of people who are like me, they start and they stop. That was the kind of guy I was. I start something, stop it, try something else, start something else, stop that, start something else, stop that. And there was no consistency. So I wasn't building anything. They were I couldn't really say to somebody that I was an entrepreneur, because I wasn't, because there was no business. I would start it and stop it. So I want to tell people, just like, make sure that regardless of what you're doing, just keep on building over time, because it's going to get better. And when you're building, make sure that when people come the first time they see your little shell of a business, make sure when they come back another couple of months or whatever, a month or so or whatever, make sure that they don't see the same shell. They should see something different next every time they come see you. It's great. It's not only good for them to see, but it's great for you to see, because you need to believe it as well. Um, so I just hammer down this notion of keep building, um, keep building not just your business, but building your mindset. That's all into it. Um, building, building how you schedule, building your team, even having somebody to help you sourcing out, stuff, building your tools around you, and just, be obsessed with building on that, and then and then make sure you're sharing every so often so people can see something something growing over time. It's so important.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, everybody has to start with somewhere.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks like, oh yeah, this person had a good break, or the variables lined up, or he had this handed to them, but they don't see all that kind of stuff. Which I think in social media, obviously, social media to a certain extent is a highlight reel of people's lives. A lot of people are struggling with the same things that they're demonstrating as this level of perfection in their lives,
Right.
but I think it's important to be genuine and authentic and kind of raw and real in that sense. So if you do struggle as a business owner or an individual, possibly sharing it, because it can go a lot further and can help a lot of people. So if you're going through something as a business owner, you're in a rut, you have, maybe you're depressed about something, maybe like financially, like you're struggling, share that. I mean, obviously some people aren't comfortable with sharing it, but if you are, I encourage you to share it, because sometimes you can find a community and rally around you, people that went through the same thing. Maybe they can help you to navigate past it a little bit better, or be a
Yeah.
support system as well.
Yeah. Great. I tell you, man, you cannot do this thing alone. You just can't. I'm learning that every single day that I mean, you can try if you might, but it's just not going to happen. No business in any sense of the word can do it by themselves. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you got to have people to help you. You got to have sources around, people to lift you up. Sometimes you don't have it in you. You got to have people who I call push partners, who can push you further. Accountability partners, accountability. Um, but people to help you, to push you and encourage you, and to learn from other people. I mean, like I said before, like you inspired me when you got on my show. Like I was like, I gotta up my sound game here. So so just having those people around you all the time. And I used to scoff at that because that was a big thing. Like the five people, you know, what is it? The five people around you. I was like, oh, come on, what are you talking about? I get that now. I didn't get that before, but I get that now. Like you need those people, around you, so to keep you, on that fast track.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like putting your best foot forward for regardless of what you're doing. So like right now I have my microphone set up, my set set up.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
sometimes obviously if somebody hasn't seen any of my interviews on other shows, or listened to my show or seen interviews on my show, like they don't know my setup. So like they're expecting whatever, and then like they're pleasantly surprised. And it's a good it's a good kind of reflection, because you have the audio set up, you have the visual that's well appealing in case they have a set. So it's like you start on a good foot, and it's a good kind of experience for that person as well, because like you're
Yeah,
prepared and you did everything you could to add to their audience and add value by obviously delivering hopefully value from what you're saying. And then you have the audio, because I mean in terms of listenership, you have to have something that connects, that really matters for somebody to listen, and a good listening experience in terms of the sound treatment. So
right,
you could
right.
have the best content, but if like you don't edit it and it's atrocious in terms of static, background noise, clicks, and all this stuff, there's like almost 2 million podcasts at this point out there. They'll go
Yeah,
somewhere else. So I think it's
yeah,
important to doing your best in that sense as well.
yeah. That's perfect. I think that um, just I get that same feeling too. You got to have what I call those these layers of belief. So when you get that, I mean, I get some of that feedback too. Like now, like my shell, my design for my podcast is so much different now than when you were on the show. And people are like, "Oh, this is a great setup. It's a great feeling, right?" I mean, it's great to hear that. That means because you need to hear that, or otherwise, your belief kind of wanes. Like, and maybe you start to like, well, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right track? But when you hear that over and over, it starts to get better and better, and you need to keep building. So next time people see you after that, that you're in a whole nother level. Like, and so people have that little thing like, Bryan, I remember when you were just doing this, and now look at you, and you want to hear that, but you can't hear that unless you're constantly building upon that one great idea that you had in your head for a long time, and get it out in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting to listen to some of the interviews I've been on because I aggressively starting doing interviews on other shows just to share my story. Because, like you said, it's important to share your story. And a lot of people think their stories aren't kind of big or grand enough or not going to add value. But I say if you can
Right.
impact or change the life of at least one person out there, it's worth sharing. So I think
Very true.
a year and a half ago, I really started going aggressive on interviews and media appearances and podcast interviews. So at this point, it's like in the last year and a half, like 95. So sometimes I even go back and listen to like the ones that I started with to now. And just
Yeah.
like everything's a lot different. Like you can hear my confidence, you can hear just my story is very kind of like crisp, like the transitions, not to say that it's like staged or planned, but like I have my thoughts together. I'm not as nervous. So you can really see the growth in that. And also listening to my own podcast in terms of earlier interviews from the sound quality and just the content and value to now. So,
I totally agree. I'm just in the stage of doing it. Just an insight to people who are introverts. Like I'm not sure people who listen to me now and think I'm that big of a deal. I mean, trust me when I tell you how introverted and shy I am, I'm like, that is the truth. It takes a lot for me to do these things, to get the energy to do these things. Um, but I think it's important for me to share my story, share my message, and get it out there. You know, you can be nervous, you can be afraid, but eventually that wanes. Like you just said, your confidence comes back. No one's going to be 100%, you know, spot on from the first go. So trust me, whoever you are, even if you're someone like me, your story matters, and your story can make a difference, and it can create a lifestyle that you probably are want to cherish and want to do something incredible. um, I just my biggest thing, even right now in this year, in where we are now, just like I want people to know that they, you know, they can make an impact. It's not too late, and um, things can change for you. You keep building on it. You really can.
yeah, I agree. So, I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Oh, great. Yes. And first of all, grateful to be on the show. First of all, thank you so much, Roland, for being. I'm honored to be on here. First of all, and just people, y'all can go to theauthorityletter.com. Very simple. Get on that list, and you can get on the list there, and I'll have several videos to help you with this same model of build it, share it, and they will come. The concept, I go in depth with that, and we go further with helping you build your authority platform. And listen to my show whenever you get a chance. When you're not listening to this one, it's the Authority Project, and you can check that out on all your favorite podcast outlets. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Thanks again for stopping by.
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.